I'm beating every N64 game, and I mean all of them. The twist is, the next game I play is randomly selected, so I have no clue what's coming next. This is the journey to beating every N64 game. Hey, welcome to another episode. If you do enjoy this video, consider giving it a like, as it does help the channel a lot. And if you like this series, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on the next one. Last time we played the literal longest game ever, and this time we're driving a train. Game number 38, Densha de Go 64. Released in 1999, this game was both developed and published by Taito. So we have another Japanese exclusive game here, and thankfully some dedicated fans have created an English translation patch for it. So Densha de Go is a train simulator. Basically, you just simulate operating a train in a very realistic manner. The series is really popular in Japan, and there was a new one released on the Switch recently. If you go to an arcade visiting Japan, you're likely to find a cabinet for Densha de Go there. The first thing I did was play the tutorial, which honestly it was incredibly helpful. So quick explanation of the UI. The top left corner is the gear I'm in, the top right is the level of brake I have applied. Also in the top left you see the current time and the time I'm expected to be at the next station. The bottom right is the distance from the next station, the bottom left is the speedometer, and the middle right are various signals I'll receive. For some reason, the lady giving the tutorial wouldn't quit winking. Super awkward. So you may notice the camera I have pointed at the wild looking controller. This game was released alongside a special train controller, which I obviously purchased because this game's hype. You can play with a regular N64 controller as well, but come on, look at this thing. How can I pass up on it? The handle on the left is what you use to change gears, causing the train to accelerate, and the long lever on the right is what you use to apply brakes. There's also the C button, which is used to blow the horn. Then there's a circular indentation in the middle, which is a holder for a pocket watch. I think if you play on the hardest difficulty, the game doesn't display the current time on screen, so you would use that to know how long you had to make it. So for this game, the main single player mode is arcade mode, so we will be completing that to beat this game. The game has 4 areas to operate the train in: Hokuriku, Tohoku, Kanto, and Kansai. The difficulty was on normal by default, so I decided I'd just try to finish all the different tracks to beat this game. First up was the express line from Naoetsu to Uragawara. So when you start a real route, you have to wait till the cab signal is given and then you're off. This was already way different than the tutorial because there was a 35 km/h speed limit right away. Those limits will become a huge pain, especially in the harder routes. Along with the fancy train controller, this game also supports the N64 voice recognition unit, which I also own. It's a device that plugs into a controller port and you plug a microphone into it and the game can detect your speech patterns. I never really figured out how to get it to work for this game though. It shows a woman talking on the left side of the screen when you're supposed to do it, but there were no instructions on what you were supposed to do, like they didn't mention it in the tutorial. Thankfully, it's an optional feature, so I ended up just turning it off. When you arrive at a train station, it will tell you to either pass it or stop at it. If you arrive late, you'll lose seconds on your allotted time per second you're late. If that runs down to 0, you lose. Being late is one thing, but the worst thing that can happen is receiving an ATS actuation. Sometimes there will be temporary speed limits imposed shown by a traffic light on the right side of the screen. If you don't follow these, a horrible sounding alarm goes off and your train is immediately stopped. What do you mean signal ignored? What'd I do? What did I do? Then you lose a bunch of time on top of being even more late due to the train already having to stop. Don't break these at all costs. As you might be able to tell, the first run was going horribly. I had to stop at the next station and I was very late from that forced stop earlier. I was coming into the station way too fast, so I threw on the emergency brake and it caused the passengers on board to all fall over, and I didn't even stop in time. It was a disaster. The game is a bit forgiving in this way though. As long as you actually make it to the station you wanted to stop at, you can keep on going with the route. So the game let me continue continue on, even though I passed up the station, caused injuries to people on board, and I was very late. So yeah, that's generally the idea behind the game. It's just a simulation game where you're just trying to experience what it's like to drive a train around Japan. Like here we are going over the Kata River. Maybe some of you have visited Japan and ridden on some of the routes in this video. At the next station I was set to stop, and this time things went a bit different. Literally 15 centimeters away from the exact spot. Couldn't have asked for a better outcome. Oh my god! All aboard! Heading to some other station. If you stop within 1 meter of the destination, you gain a 5-second bonus to your allotted time, which is pretty awesome. The next session was the final stretch of this route. The speed limit was 110 kilometers per hour the entire time, which caused me to get a bit speed happy. Yeah, definitely applied the brakes way too late, and I ran into a new problem. If you pass the station by over 50 meters, you receive an ATS actuation, and you hear that awful alarm again. It turns out though that all you need to do is reach the final station to pass on this difficulty, so I beat it even though I clearly didn't stop when I was supposed to. When you finish, it gives you a report card on various stats of your run, and you get a final score. So next up was the Hakutaka line from Naoetsu to Moikamachi. The first route was rated at level 1, and this one was level 2. And I could almost immediately see the difference in difficulty. The speed limit for the entire beginning was 100 kilometers per hour. Then with barely any warning, it dropped down to 45. There was no way I could slow down in time, so I got a 10-second speeding penalty. For the harder routes, I basically just had to memorize the entire route and know when the speed was going to change. I was going really fast to try to make up time from that penalty, and I ended up passing the station 5 seconds early. You would think, hey, it's a good thing to be early, but no. This game does not like that. If you get too ahead of schedule, the game will impose additional speed limits on you based on the traffic light on the right. And if you fail those, you receive an ATS actuation. It actually kind of makes sense because I guess if you get too ahead of schedule, you may run into another train. This route is also where I realized this game has a pretty in-depth storyline to it. You may think, oh, it's just a simple train simulator, but no, the lore runs deep. See, every time a proceed signal is given, the guy talking to us says, and when the speed limit changes, he says, I don't know about you, but it sure sounds like he's saying 90 pesos and Sergey. That's right, you hear it too? The character driving this train is named Sergey. He fled Japan following the collapse of the Soviet Union. And since the guy keeps saying 90 pesos, that's related to the measly salary they're paying him. Only 90 pesos per hour. Don't ask why they're paying in pesos and not yen. Like, I'm not the one who made up this story, okay? Anyway, this low sum of 90 pesos per hour is all he can use to keep himself afloat. And they're reminding him of that because the train schedule is taken very seriously. If he is late, he won't be paid. So if they keep hammering it in his head, he'll be a better engineer. That's totally the true lore and not something we made up because there was a lot of downtime in the game. Anyway, back to the game. Another thing I learned on this route is you have to pass a station. You arrive on the exact second you're supposed to, you receive an on-time bonus. This is really hard to do though, trust me. It took quite a while actually, but I did make it through this route and to the final stop. I overran quite a bit and I was early, but it didn't matter. All you have to do is actually make it to that final station to pass, remember? And then the credits rolled after winning. Guess it's pretty easy to beat this game. But I decided to do all the tracks because the game was kind of fun. The next route I did was quite different in that I had to stop at nearly every station along the way rather than passing them. Normally, this would be insanely hard because stopping the train correctly is easily the hardest part of the game. But for this game, as long as you make it to the station itself, you gain 1 continue. So if you time out due to too many penalties at the station, you can just continue from there with a fresh set of time. And if you make it past the station successfully but then run out of time after, you can just restart from the previous station rather than the beginning of the route. Basically, as long as you were half paying attention, these types of routes were very easy to beat. At the final stop of this route, I had another perfect stop. Yo, that is what I'm talking about. That is what I'm talking about. Heck yeah. I like to show these off because it was so rare and I just felt good when I got them. Until you actually play this, or maybe if you've driven a real train, it's hard to realize how difficult stopping actually is. The final route in this area was rated on the maximum difficulty, and for good reason too. All of the penalties are increased and you have to learn the route much better. Like here it gave me under 2 seconds to be like, hey, speed limit's changing. I don't know how familiar you are with trains, but they definitely can't slow down in 2 seconds. This one was honestly just so brutal. No matter how much I practiced, I just kept failing. I would either go too slow and run out of time, or I'd get caught by one of the many speed limit changes which basically instantly end your run. But somehow after about 3 hours of attempts, I persevered and made it to the end. Oh my god! The god run, and look at the time! Look at the time! I feel like this was a great stop too. On time and only 2 meters past the stop location. So now I can move on to the next region, Tohoku. The first route is traveling from Akita to Omagari. All of the routes here are only level 2 other than the final one, which is max difficulty. This place is a real nice change of scenery. It's full of snow everywhere. It still feels weird to me that it snows in parts of Japan. Like, I don't know, to me it's like a tropical area or something. It was so refreshing going to a lower level route after that last one. The speed limit changes are warned well in advance, and that tutorial lady even gives us advice on what speed to travel at. It only took a few tries to beat this one as opposed to 3 hours of attempts for that last one. The next one was that same route except I had to stop at every station. Incredibly easy. There was this annoying passenger who would like freak out when I passed the stop by a measly 40 meters. Like, come on, you can walk that far. He's over here eating his newspaper, acting like the world's ending. One thing to talk about in this game is the music. There's pretty good music in the menus and when you introduce a new route, but there's none during the game. It makes sense you wouldn't have music while driving the train, but I was told that in Japan the train stations play music that's really nice to hear. However, this game didn't have that for whatever reason. I think it may have been due to licensing issues, but I'm honestly not sure. So most of these were easy, like I said. It gets a little boring when you're just coasting along with no speeds changes, so I just started honking the horn randomly. I found out that if you honk it when you see animals near the tracks, you receive a time bonus. Did I get a bonus for honking at those deer? I guess it's to try to dissuade them from running onto the tracks, so it makes sense. In the fourth route, I ran into something very new. There was a traffic signal telling me I had to stop mid-track. Wasn't sure what was up with that, so I stopped to see what would happen. All of a sudden, another train came barreling down the track the way we were about to go, and I instantly wanted to know what would have happened if I didn't stop. I was hoping for like a massive explosion and a new cutscene, but the devs weren't fun here. You just receive one of those ATS actuations and the other train never even shows up. They really missed out here. That could have been some cool cutscene, you know. I had the best stop of my entire playthrough on this one. Oh, baby. Look at that. 2 centimeters off the mark. How can you beat that? Absolutely flawless. I just like showing these off. So then I was on to the final Tohoku route, the same Akita to Omagari line except on the max difficulty. I knew going in that it would be tough, but man, it's just so brutal even knowing that. It was so hard to make it to the station on time because it would switch from no speed limit directly to 55 kilometers per hour right before it. I ended up getting so fed up with this one that I came up with a new plan. Since it seems like you only have to reach the station itself to win, and I saw a wall at the end of the station, I would try this. I'd just come into the station at full speed and not slow down at all. That way, there was no chance of me being late and losing. As long as I didn't go over the speed limit, I'd be fine. And this is how that went. Please! Oh, thank God. Okay. I forgot completely about that. Hey guys, train's here. Yeah. Honestly, I can't believe that worked. So with that done, we finished the Tohoku routes and the only level 5 route left in the game. Things were kind of smooth sailing from here on out. Next was the Kanto routes. Maybe we'll see some Pokemon along the way. Kanto has 3 routes from Shinagawa to Ueno, Yokohama to Shinagawa, and Tokyo to Shinjuku. So these Kanto routes are a real nice change of scenery as well. Now we're right in the middle of the city. I guess it's Tokyo. It's too bad the game doesn't play the songs at the train stations, because imagine having the little song playing while I make these amazing stops. In the final line on Kanto, I had the best stop of the entire playthrough. On time, 0 meters, the literal perfect stop. On time and in position. Only 9 centimeters off the mark. Like, come on, give Sergey a raise. Anyway, none of these were all that difficult. The only ones I truly struggled with were the level 5 ones. With Kanto down, only the Kansai lines remained. These have you running trains from Osaka to Kobe in various ways. These routes are similar looking to the Kanto ones, more buildings and things around, but it doesn't have the feel of a big city like being in Tokyo. At the beginning of the first route in this region, something wild happened. The alarm went off and it told me to use the emergency brake. What happened? What's going on? There's a truck stopped over the tracks. I never had anything like this before, so I panicked and I did what it said. It shows the train like narrowly stopping before ramming into a truck that was stopped on the railway crossing. You get a huge time bonus for it too. Naturally, I really wanted to see a cutscene showing a fiery explosion with the truck, so I reset to see what would happen if I didn't apply the brake. Unfortunately, it seems this event is random and it's really rare. I couldn't get it to happen again with quite a few resets, so I inevitably gave up. Maybe one of you knows what happens if you don't stop. Somehow I managed to top my best stop of the playthrough by getting an even better one. Yes! On time! On time! On time and in position yet again, and this time I was only 4 centimeters off instead of 9. Like, I don't know, maybe I should pursue a career in operating trains. Other than that, nothing especially of note happened in this region. I beat all the routes without any trouble. So then I was scrolling through all the regions just to show that I'd completed every line when I saw something interesting. In the first region, Hokuriku, a new route had opened up. It turns out you unlock secret routes when you beat all the other ones. One for bronze, silver, and gold stars on all the missions. Since I didn't do any better than bronze on all the routes, this was the only one I unlocked, but I figured I'd do it anyway. It's not anything special, the same route through the Hokuriku Expressway we all know and love, just with a different model train this time. I was a bit rusty on this region, but I got through it after a few tries. It was only level 2 difficulty after all. And that was the final route I had unlocked, and I felt pretty satisfied with the game. Game complete. So there you have it, my journey to beating Densha de Go 64. This was a very unique game in that it's more like just work than playing a game, but it was pretty fun to do, especially with the custom controller. I really enjoyed just being able to sit back and relax for most of the game, although it did get pretty stressful in those level 5 missions. The graphics, they're not too bad, the lack of music kind of fits the game in a way, and it was just a good time overall. I don't know, I really enjoyed it. I gave it an 8.5 out of 10 for enjoyability, mostly probably because of the special controller, and a 7 out of 10 for difficulty because those level 5 routes are nuts, even though you technically only have to beat one route to activate the credits. But yeah, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it. If you did enjoy the video, consider giving it a like as it does help the channel a lot, and if you like this series, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on the next one. But yeah, thanks for watching, and here's a sneak peek at what is coming next. 348 games on the list. Let's see what we get. 3, 2, 1... 75? What is that? We're playing the next Doraemon game, which is Doraemon Nobita Tomitsu no Seriseki.